It's been a while, been a really long time. I like you better now. I wish you stayed a while.
All right, welcome everyone, and we are going to have a really fun panel. We have an amazing set of speakers, as you saw their background, but the most interesting thing is that the title of this panel is On Demand. So pretty much you can make this great panelist to do something on demand. So keep your requests, keep your questions, and we'll have this, if you want them to, we have a nice disco lights here. If you want them to dance, then just ask for that, and on demand, they will dance for you.
We
right?
can't see them, though. There's smoke in the way. We can't see them.
OK. So we'll try to make it as interactive as possible, and I'll just kick it off with a few questions. So that's the format, and then we'll hand it over to all of you guys. So this can really feel like an unconference as opposed to a conference. So we are all part of it. OK. So just quickly, my introduction. My name is Karl Mehta. I'm founder and CEO of a company called EdCast here in Mountain View. We are a social learning platform, and if you want to do on-demand learning, you can download my app right now. Sorry for the 2-minute free advertising. And you would also be learning from other panelists who are live streaming on EdCast. And on the panel here, we have, and I'll let the panelists introduce themselves. So maybe why don't we start from Vishal and then go from there.
Hi, I'm Vishal. I am the CEO and founder of GOQii. GOQii is building a very, very unique platform which connects fitness data from fitness bands and apps to real fitness coaches on the cloud. What we believe is the main challenge people have is not that they don't have information. Everybody knows they're not eating right or not exercising enough. What they really need is the motivation and accountability. And GOQii has built an on-demand platform to do that. So imagine that at a click of a button, you can get access to the best coach, whether you want to do exercise or nutrition or stress management, and our coaches can help you get fit. So that's the model, and really, really excited to be here.
Thanks, Vishal. Tom?
Hey, I'm Tom Willerer. I'm the Chief Product Officer of Coursera. Really excited to be here and answer your questions. Coursera, if you're not familiar, offers university courses from over 140 of the universities around the world. And accessible to anyone wherever they are, no matter what their background is. We're very excited about bringing access to education and making it available to everyone around the world. I lead the product management, engineering, analytics, operations, design team at Coursera. Prior to this, I spent a brief stint at Facebook as a product leader. Prior to that, I had a longer stint at Netflix as a product leader. And then in a past life, I was in advertising.
Thanks, Tom. Maverick?
Hello, everyone. My name is Maverick Shih. I'm in charge of a BYOC. It is in Acer. BYOC stands for Build Your Own Cloud. It is a business group, and we started this cloud from 2011, but we decided to make an IoT platform about a year and a half ago. The problem we want to solve is we are coming from the hardware world, which most of people know us as selling PC, tablet, and monitor and smartphones. But we know there's a gap between cloud and hardware, so we try to bring those gaps for those hardware people, so they don't need to worry about how to build cloud. Instead, they can focus on bringing their device into the world for more applications.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. So before we kick it off to the first question, let me just set the context here in terms of why this is a very exciting topic and an exciting panel. So we're going to talk here about on-demand. And to me, on-demand means real time, right? And the way, before EdCast, I was at Menlo Ventures, and we used to study the whole market space and landscapes. And we were looking at just a real-time space or the real-time technologies as like a $10 billion, $100 billion market, a new market that is coming up. And all of us are familiar with just some of the super successful stories like Uber in transportation, Uber and Lyft in transportation. They are real-time on demand. We've seen also multi-billion-dollar company come from nowhere in food industry, right? Which is on demand, real-time. you want to order food and the food's delivered to you. So it seems like just in the last few years, this big mega trend is that everything that we as human we need is moving real time or on demand from your food, clothing, transportation, and now what we're seeing is health and education. So we're going to talk about some of these other applications, but we are already familiar with transportation very well. But health and education are, I think, the new sectors that are just about to see the impact of the real time and on demand. So this is a sector that is going to become a $1 trillion industry just in front of our eyes in the next few years, right? We don't have to wait for a decade or two. It's going to happen just in the next few years. So very exciting topic. So let's jump into this. So I think the first question would be, describe, like maybe again, we'll just go through the same drill here, and describe how you guys are making an impact in your company in terms of bringing that type of on-demand services to your consumers.
So in the past, if you looked at data, if you wanted to get medical data, you need to be in a hospital, take a blood test. The doctors would take ECG and all kinds of tests and would be then diagnose and advise you on certain things. Very soon, your phone is going to be your ICU. It can measure already. There are bands and phones which are measuring heart rate, skin temperature, diabetes, pretty much everything, right? So now when each and every person is going to roam around with this data on their phone, they cannot go to a doctor every day. And there are not enough doctors in the world to look at all this data. So what's happening is that there is going to be a major disruption in the healthcare space. I'm sure you all are checking how the stock market is doing, whether in China, India, or on NASDAQ. Similarly, somebody could be checking how you are doing today with your health. What is your lipid profile today? What is your blood pressure? Is your heartbeat correct? And this data on an on and live basis could be transferred to people who we call coaches, who would help you to make a transition in lifestyle. So what we believe is what Uber did was just took one data, which was location, and they disrupted the entire transportation industry. What we believe at GOQii is with health data, we are going to disrupt the entire health industry, we are going to disrupt the entire insurance industry, and we are going to disrupt the entire industry which is relying on people getting sick. So the business model right now is everybody's waiting for you to get sick, and then they say we'll do heart surgery and this replacement and that replacement. And we are saying that with the data, you would know that this is what you need to do so that you don't get sick. So this is going to be a complete revolution in preventative healthcare.
Yeah.
And that's going to be led by the combination of technology, humans, and the whole on-demand economy, because no one company or one organization would be ever able to do this. And finally, there is a big debate of sensors and AI and robots, kind of helping you, and giving you advice. And what our belief is that at least in the health space, it is very important that the AI is combined with the human, because this is, at the end of the day, this can impact people's lives. And the most important sensor, we believe, for all which is required is not any other sensor but common sense. And that's what we are doing. We are connecting health data to common sense and hopefully changing the world.
Great.
Yeah, so the way that Coursera started was Andrew Ng and Daphne Kohler, our founders, put their classes, Andrew's machine learning class, Daphne's probabilistic graphical models class, both of them classes they taught at Stanford, put them online. Didn't know what was going to happen. It was an experiment, found hundreds of thousands of students from around the world were taking these classes. So then expanded to other universities. We now have over 140 of these, but when we first started, what universities did, which was very logical, was to take their class, make it available, but make it available at the same time as they make it available on campus. So if I'm teaching a class in the spring and the fall, I'll put my class out there on Coursera in the spring and the fall. That makes sense from an instructor standpoint. They want to be able to have a high-quality experience. But from a learner standpoint, it's not like the learners that we're attracting are university students. These are people like you and I that are out there looking to reskill themselves. So from their perspective, the times that they're learning is not spring and fall, it's 365 days of the year. So we went through, in the last year and a half, a major change, not only with our partners, but also with our platform and with our learners to make the content available all the time. We started, so then it was like, okay, used to be available in the fall and in the spring. Now it's going to be available all the time. Should there be any structure to it? Should you have start dates and end dates to it? These were all questions that we had. So we started in a pure Netflix model. Click, start going. You know, I could start it today. You could start it tomorrow and move through it at your own pace. And what we found through a lot of experimentation was having the content available all the time is really powerful, but actually having some structure where you have due dates, deadlines, and start dates, and you move through it with a cohort of other learners is actually the best way to increase learning and increase completion rates throughout our classes. So now we have this interesting hybrid of taking some of the old world, which is having cohorts, having structure, having due dates and deadlines, with some of this new on-demand world of the courses available anytime. And that seems to be not only a really good model for our universities and how they want to teach and reach the world, but also for our learners because it's available when they want, but it also gives the structure that they need to be able to move through it and succeed in these courses. Now, in order to really make that work, we had to go and recruit and create a community of learners that could help other learners get through courses. So our courses, a lot of them are very technically challenging, or conceptually challenging if it's a business course, or just require interaction with other learners to really get the most out of it. Now, that's hard to do if you don't have a set of mentors or leaders that are moderating the forums, that are really answering questions as they come up. So we found that to be a really critical piece to making this work for us, which is having a set of these learners that we think are really the super learners that can go and take other learners, answer their questions, and help shepherd them through the experience. That also is very comforting for our instructors who look at the course as a manifestation of their own professional career. And if it's out there all the time, how do I know it's going to be high quality all the time? Well, these mentors are able to do that role and do that job. So those are the components for how we've made on-demand really work for us. When you take it to mobile, what we see is in any given month, about 30% of our actives are active on a mobile device, which is fantastic. If you take it to a week, about 20% of our learners are using only mobile in a week. So we've done, in the last 2 years, built these from scratch so that someone can go through and actually take a course from top to bottom on their mobile phone and not even have to go to a desktop computer. We think that's really important because the way that this plays in and the way I think this will play out in the future is that learning is not something you're going to do in these one-off periods of time, but it's more something that's going to be throughout your lifetime. And not only that, it's going to be something that needs to fit into your lifestyle, and you want to have it in these sort of snackable moments. And I think mobile can really deliver on that, and that's what we're seeing with a lot of our learners and how we're developing the product.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, from our perspective about the on-demand, we kind of try to solve this problem from two aspects. One of the aspect which we are strong coming from the hardware aspect. We know from the hardware side, if we want to further unleash, not just limit to the application only on the mobile phone, but in the future in the IoT space, you have to go upstream to work with all those hardware like SoC and sensor makers, and to make those chips become part of the IoT, part of the cloud at the beginning. Because most of the hardware company, believe it or not, they just have no idea how to do a cloud in a secure way and a scalable way. So we work with all those upstream, like we have Atmel, Marvell, MediaTek, Realtek, all those chip makers, we work together and put all those reference design together. So when the hardware guy take the chip, it's already connected to the cloud. They only need to work on those they're familiar with, like GPIO, USB interface, try to make the firmware to work on the platform, then it become part of the cloud. That's the one side of it we are working on. to help that in the future, those IoT devices will be easily into the network, and people can easily leverage them to deliver on-demand services in one aspect. On the other aspect, we're working with the domain expertise. First of all, Acer, of course, we're from ICT industry. We know the IT industry very well, but unfortunately, we don't understand different verticals like medical field. We have no idea. So we go out there and work with all those partners who has also limited knowledge about ICT, but they want to leverage the technology that we have as today, and we can work with them together. So we can bring in hardware plus software and the services to them together. For example, we do have several cases on the market already. Like for example, in the medical care Medicare field in Taiwan, we help them to bring all those Medicare device, medical grade device, into the IoT world as easy as they put in an IoT module into it, it's a chip into it, and become part of IoT. And they don't need to worry about how to connect to the cloud, but it goes through our cloud interface, and the data is landed on a storage and a computing device we call A-Beam-1. Because in Taiwan's regulation, all those data cannot store in the cloud. It has to be in the hospital or in the patient's home. So that piece of a device can be, A-Beam-1 can be landed in a doctor's office, and a doctor can on-demand using their apps on the phone, which we have also some of the sample codes for those service providers. They can do their own app, quickly go in and see those like blood pressure readings, weight reading, or even ECG readings, something like that. And we have been demonstrating them around the world from this February from World Mobile Congress. So that's one of the examples. We can help. We're more like a technology enabler to help those existing service providers to change the game rule from more of a you have to go there, do something, but now the patient or the doctor can do the on-demand kind of things.
Cool. So folks, what we have here is, as you can see, a horizontal technology platform or a service like on-demand service being applied in different verticals. So we are, we heard Vishal, how he wants to disrupt the healthcare industry, and Coursera disrupting the education, and Maverick applying it across many, many sectors through his IoT. Let me just reflect a little bit on my experience with this on-demand services. So, my background before I went into the education industry was in financial services, and in fact, financial services is probably the largest user of real-time services. I think that's where, back in the 1950s and 60s, all the demand for supercomputing and fast computing came from, because if you don't get real-time on-demand within milliseconds, your financial data, it can lead to billions of dollars of losses. So even today, it's the largest sector consuming the real-time services. But what has happened over the time is that it has become pretty sophisticated and automated. So I want to come to a question about what are some of the parallels that we can draw from a very matured industry like financial services that has done this on-demand service very well, and then the next that we have seen in transportation and food delivery. So in education, and just reflecting my experience, so when I started EdCast and all I wanted to do was build a social learning platform, I had no idea and no connections in the university. Like Coursera has a great pedigree with Stanford and universities. So I had no idea what content to offer. All I wanted was to learn socially. And the whole concept of combining mobile and on-demand was actually very helpful, because we said, well, all we need to do is just put out a platform out there and throw some content out there or some topics, and then see what people do, and then rapidly learn from that consumer experience. So one of the cool things that we've learned out of this on-demand services that every day you're constantly learning from the consumers, and a lot of time your product is actually being shaped directly from the consumer in real time. So it totally compresses the whole product technology strategy cycle. And I want you folks to kind of reflect your view in terms of how you are seeing that this continuous feedback, and you're constantly serving the customer, and you're looking at the data, like Vishal, you talked about that you see the data in real time, right? how do you, what kind of new things that emerges from that that we were not able to do before? You know, non-real time versus real time.
So let me give you an example. Today on Wall Street, there is an analyst sitting in Goldman Sachs looking at stock data and almost real time deciding whether he's going to hold, buy, or sell the stock. They are looking at companies' balance sheets and data and immediately able to derive the health of the company, and not just the company, the country and the economies. We believe that more than that, I mean, human body has so many data parameters, right from your blood cells to DNA. All this data together, if put together and shown to an expert with the help of AI, we can almost start predicting that today, because you had this Diet Coke or this whatever, you know, piece of cake, what can you do tomorrow to immediately nullify the effect? So the idea, right now, the problem of the system is that we are all waiting to get sick, and then we go, and then we are figuring out, and then taking medication. It's like, imagine, it's like when the company goes bankrupt is when everybody comes to know. That's not what happens in the financial world. You come to know the status of a company quarter and years ahead, and you are able to decide. So the big news here is, and I think I should tell all of you here because it impacts each one of you and your families, that for the next, say, 10 to 15 years, if you can keep yourself away from diabetes, blood pressure, or any of the lifestyle diseases, there is a huge probability that all of you, and I'm surely going to be living more than 100 years. And that's because you will not get sick. Before you get sick, you will be able to take decisions of data, and there'll be experts sitting and analyzing not, you know, data about something else, but about your life. So I think there is a massive disruption going to happen in this space, and that's why I'm so excited on this.
No, that's a great analogy or metaphor about the bankruptcy. That, yeah, you know, we as venture capitalists or investors, we are looking at the health of a company continuously, also in real time, and you're not waiting for it to go bankrupt. So, Tom, what's your experience? You guys have a massive amount of data. You guys have scaled really well, and you probably have you have access every day to a lot of this data. What are your insights from that?
Yeah, I guess I'd say two things here. One is, I don't have to be Steve Jobs and predict what I think the product should or will look like. And I think that's really important, because what that does for us at Coursera is allows us to democratize the product innovation in a way that's never before been possible. So I can have an idea, someone on my team can have an idea, I could disagree with that, and we can go test that. We can go gather data, and lo and behold, a lot of times I'm actually wrong and surprised by things that people do, because people are really hard to predict. So that's one that I think is really fundamental. It's transformed how I think product development is done throughout the entire internet sector, and it's something that we adopt at Coursera pretty strongly, and I feel powerfully about that. The other one is one that's interesting, because on the other side, teaching is something that hasn't changed in hundreds of years. In many ways, this is an art, or it's someone who's been an expert in a subject area, develops a curriculum, and then they teach that for 30 years. And they might tweak it on the edges, but they don't have the massive amounts of data that we do at Coursera to actually understand what's helping people learn and what's not, and what's getting in the way. And that's one of the things that I think is really exciting about the next 10 years, is we're going to see teaching go from this more of a darker art to a data science in and of itself, where people are doing these classes on Coursera and other platforms. They're teaching thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and then they're using that data to then make their lectures better, their assessments better, and ultimately what that's going to do is mean we're serving learners much better than we have previously, because they're going to be able to learn at a higher quality and much more efficiently than they ever have. So those are two that I'd call out that I think are really going to be interesting.
So Tom, let me ask you a question there on what you just said. So based on data, have you seen that the learning science has improved, that you can actually make a bad teacher, or I don't know whether there's something called as bad teacher, but someone who doesn't know how to teach well, becoming a better teacher in that art just because he or she now has access to a lot of this data about how student performing and based on his or her lecture, so he or she can improve it. Have you seen that change? Because, you know, I don't think that we have seen it yet.
Yep. We've seen hints of it. I wouldn't say we've seen it at wide scale yet.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we're collecting data. We're trying to understand what are the different aspects of teaching that are actually really important, all the way from simple things of, you know, don't look down, don't read your notes, like these are obvious things, to, you know, getting more sophisticated around assessments. So we're able to tell, wow, people do really well on questions 1 through 3, but on 4 they bomb. Now what that allows the instructor to do is turn into an investigator and go in and say, why did this question actually not perform well? Okay, here are some hypotheses. Let me go out there, put something new out there, and see what happens. And then that allows them to improve it over time. So I think those are some of the ways that we're working.
Great. Well, I hope that in future we can actually turn a lot of these bad teachers into good teachers.
Yes.
Cool. So Maverick, you are more of a platform or an infrastructure provider, but do you guys have, as an Acer, has an access to any big data, real time, that you guys have access to, or from your customers' data or something?
Yep. Well, in fact, we do have lots of big data ourselves. We ship more than 100,000 units every day globally. And what happened is, first of all, I think all this on demand is important to have a quick turnaround feedback loop. So we can further, we are talking about product improvement. We can further improve our product. And we started many, many years ago. In fact, what we had is we try to improve our quality of a product, which right now we build a big data. We understand all the different of ODM. The model we have is we kind of OEM in the PC world, and there are a group of manufacturers we call ODMs. We design the marketing spec, we give out the ID design, and the ODM will help us to design the circuit, whatever, and put together as a notebook or a PC. And we have, because the quality is very important, given the number of devices we ship every day, any hardware problem, unlike the software, you can uninstall it and reinstall to fix the problem. You basically have to bring in all the broken hardware and fix them and send it back to the customer. It's very, very expensive. So we tackle the problem from here. So now we're looking at all the field side feedback about what are the components be failing and how the percentage of the failing, it comes out a curve. So now with those big data, that's one aspect. We know, in fact, different ODM manufacturers has its signature of producing a notebook. What are the components possible will fail? And the curve looks like what within a period of time. So we can use that to early predict whether if this curve looks like this, then we have to go back to the manufacturer, try to figure out what's wrong with the manufacturing process. Now we bring further advanced, right now is we now embedded with all those monitoring in all our device. Of course, with user consent, they can opt in or opt out to understand how they interact with our product. So now, Acer, this is big in gaming. The major reason, I just take tablet as an example. Before we did understand all those data, we thought most of people using tablet for watching videos and go online. But in fact, it turns out most of people using for gaming, using a tablet for gaming. So we start to build the gaming tablet, and we announced this month so people can get it, just small advertisement. So that's also will help us to understand how people interact. And we also know the people feedback, we know how they are using the product. Some of the problem with today's technology with cloud, we can on demand, not really on demand, we can push the update to fix the problem, which people understand. At the same time, we understand by looking at all those cloud data, we know the priority. What are the things we have to fix? Because we all have the limited resource. So that part really helps a lot with our, we call core business, part of it. So right now we try to put all those know-how and technology together and become also part of service that can help our other hardware partners to solve their problem, especially they have a major global shipment. And the hardware, again, is a very different world that if you have a problem, you have to take care of your hardware product. That's very, very expensive. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So we have 15 minutes. I'm going to ask one more questions, and then you guys start preparing your questions. Would love to have more interaction here. I'm going to make a very crazy prediction, and then and I'll tell you why I'm making that prediction, and then I want you guys to tell me you agree, disagree, and then why you agree or disagree. So my prediction I'm making is that in about 10 years, let's say in these two sectors that we have representation here, education and healthcare, we will not need any teachers and will not need any doctors, okay? Now, sure, it's very controversial. And I'm drawing, and I'll tell you why I'm thinking like this, which is, if we look at the, we looked at the two other industries which has been affected by this real-time technologies. Financial services, stock market used to have this human intervention and somebody shouting in the hall about stock prices, things like that, completely taken over electronically. It's the computers talking to computers. No more human intervention. In fact, human intervention will slow down and mess up and huge, massive error or problems. If you look at transportation, we're already in the era where starting to see the driverless car going to happen, right? So again, no human intervention, just totally, you call a car, the car comes up, you get transportation, so no human intervention. So will we see this kind of a situation where healthcare becomes so well automated, and based on that real-time data and feedback loop and all of that stuff, no doctors, no nurses, just computers helping human body? Will we ever see that in education?
So on healthcare, clearly no. There is going to be, and I jokingly say, if we refer to Star Trek all the time, that whatever happened in Star Trek is happening now. Even in Star Trek, there was Dr. McCoy who used the transcoder, right? So what is going to happen is the diagnostic part of things are going to be more and more taken by machines. So the aspect of healthcare which is going to, let's say, have lesser dependency on humans is diagnostics. The treatment also would probably become more different, but finally you do need a surgeon to work on you. So I think there'll be certain aspects where doctors are required, but there'll be certain aspects where doctors will become redundant.
Well, let me challenge you on the surgery. I was in Los Angeles yesterday, and I met with a doctor, and he actually has started a company. I don't know whether I'm allowed to say this or not, but it's in 3D printing, and what he does is that, and this is unbelievably cool technology, by the way. So he says that, if you have some problem, they scan it, and then the 3D printer will print that particular organ, print it exactly like what it is, and then and then there is a robot that operates on that, and then the robot, and then everything looks good. Then the robot will act on the patient. So very futuristic, very Star Trek-y, but yeah, I'm sure there is definitely some element of human.
So let me know whenever the robot is operating on you. I will come and be there to see it.
Anyway, but that was fascinating to hear the combination of robotics, 3D printing, scanning, and all of that stuff. What about education, Tom?
It's a really good question, a provocative thought. I think I'd challenge the premise a bit. So I'd say there are drivers, and the drivers are actually the people that are designing the algorithms and software to make the cars move. So the act of driving has just been taken and given to a different set of people and a different skill set. And I think similarly with education, even in something where it's much more adaptive, where all the material is out there, a learner can go through and choose their path and kind of make it through on their own. Someone designed that. And that someone that designed that is a teacher. And they had to understand the material well enough, and they had to understand learners well enough to make that resonate with them. So I think that that's always going to be there, even as these technologies allow teaching to scale. And that's really the point. So, even with a traditional MOOC where there's a video recording, that's taken something that an instructor is able to do in a classroom setting of at most maybe a couple of hundred, and now have that scaled to a couple 100,000, and then a couple million, and then a couple 100 million that are now able to access that material, which then makes the interactions, which I still think are going to be very important, and I think you do as well because you're developing a social learning platform. The interactions between humans I think much more meaningful, because you can take the sort of transactional, here's the knowledge, and do that in a scalable way, and then dig much deeper into the concepts, what people are struggling with, or they want to go much deeper into it in an in-person setting. And I don't think that's going to get replaced. I just think we're going to find ways to scale the pieces that should be scaled, which obviously a lecture or some of that basic learning should be.
Okay. Well,
But
so
I
far
thought there was this
go ahead.
tablet, there was a learning tablet coming up, right? You have it and you can learn to speak Chinese and stuff. So I thought that's what I'm waiting for, actually.
Yeah.
Well, before we go to Maverick, so far, these two guys have good news for you. If anyone in the audience is a teacher or a doctor, you have a family member who is a teacher or a doctor, so no need to hate me for making some crazy prediction that all these guys are going to lose their jobs. Okay, Maverick, what do you think?
Oh, for what we see is there are things will be automated with artificial intelligence, with the backup of all those big data, so that it will become smarter and smarter. What we look at is some of the service, yes, it might be replaced by machine or by device, but in the behind still need human. And the good sign about that is because, like for example, medical services is very, very related to the people you have. You have a limited doctor, you have limited nurses. How can we use technology, help you to make money in this world, make money while you are sleeping? That can be done. With some of the assumption you have, some of the things with my knowledge, I can train the system and they can do some services at the first level. So I can do the first level service, and then second level, I can do the second level things. So that's what we see what will happen in the future, and we can change a lot, and more people will be served. And the cost can be also come down dramatically as well. And for the educational part, I would say similar things, and something is already in automatic mode, like for example, GRE test in the US. It's all done by the computer. Of course, all those knowledge base still need human beings, as you say, put all those together. But that repeating work should be done by the machine. So those are the things what we see in terms of technology can help different sectors to move forward.
No, I'm glad that you brought up the cost and the access, because I think if you look at education and healthcare, two big trillion-dollar sector. In fact, the top three problems that both sector has is exactly the same, which is high cost, poor access, and a lot of parts poor quality. So the more technology that penetrates into health and education, it's going to open up the access to more people, reduce the cost, right, and improve the quality. And then the teachers and the doctors and the nurses, they can do more higher quality stuff because all the other routine manual stuff will get done by automation. So we have 2 minutes and 55, about 3 minutes, sorry for that. But audience, take it away. Yes, sir.
About the education.
Do we have a microphone here?
About the education. I think both Tom and Max did a good job, the previous speaker, about what they're doing. However, we so focused on how much money you're making, we forgot our one thing. We talk about personalized medicine. How about the personalized education? If you can make our little apps, in the future, all the kids will have a mobile in their hands. So if they can access, pick on whatever they would like, then they can tailor to their nature, their like. Is a personalized education. It doesn't have to cost very much money. The teachers can be just the guiding counselors. And that will be really revolutionized education. Now, as far as you have learned something from China, you gave this software to kids free. Then scale up, great. The other guy, Max, got 100 million from Facebook. You know how many apps they can write? If you give all those apps to the little kids, let them to pick personalized education, that'd be great. So you think outside the box.
Yep. No, great comment. You have a question, but those are great comments. And I think we didn't use the exact words, but I think Tom brought it up about the continuous real-time feedback that allows to personalize the education for the user. And we do that at EdCast, which is personalized social learning. But great comment. Thank you. Any other questions? Sorry, you had a comment.
I just want to share there's something we right now is doing with Chongqing government in China is also providing the environment with digital education. We are able to, right now, of course, it is a trialing round we are starting. Right now, it's putting the application into the classroom, so all the students' test results will be tracked. So we will be able to understand what are the weaknesses of each different individual students. And of course, parents care about that, and we can send those reports to them. And then we have a different courses to enhance that. But that is more fitting to not a really from the app's perspective, but more working with government. They also want to enhance the education, and we have some trialing that about 19 classes in Chongqing. We are working on that part as well.
Fantastic. Well, the clock says we are out of time, 0-0. So let's give a round of applause to the panelists. Great job. If you guys have any questions, see them off stage. We are all going to be here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.